the grand finale of Room 592 for today, September. This should be Friday, the 4th of September 2019, and I'm happy to be joined by, of course, senior journalist Leonard Gildari and the man of the moment, Dr. Yog Mahadio, and they have the Honorable Minister of Human Services and Social Security with them tonight as their guests. Gentlemen, lady, a pleasant good evening to you, and welcome to the grand finale.
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you, Josh, and thank you to the Kaito Radio technical team working hard behind the scenes to make it possible. You guys have been doing a fantastic job. I'm not saying that because I'm saying bye-bye. I'm saying that because you have genuinely been doing a good job to Josh, Kevin, Raj, and all of you there. And, you would have known that my co-host, Mr. Leonard Gildari, might have had some crosswords to say to you, but never have you heard a crossword from your brother Yog, right? So we'll have that as a record. Leonard, what do you say to that, my friend?
I think you tried to set me up in the last moment, but I'm not going to take setup.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're joining us from on this wonderful Friday evening, this is season finale. We're bringing the curtains down on room 592 tonight. Welcome to this season finale. Welcome to this episode of Room 592, where we unleash the truth. Wherever you're joining us from, it's a wonderful Friday evening in Guyana. Government is in place and working. Weather is beautiful. Nature is all working its way out. And we all have to do what we have to do to ensure our country continues to be good. And ladies and gentlemen, as we start our final episode of this memorable show, I think, this memorable program. Before we get into our chit chat and our discussions and bring on our other guests for tonight, let me welcome our honorable Minister Vindhya Prasad, who we have here, and it's been a request we have made to have the minister join us because, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, social protections, all of the work that we do across the villages, the work we do that can really look at the paradigm of social unity across the country. Fortunately, it falls in the hands of a wonderful person who is committed to the kind of unity we want to build, and that is no other than Honorable Dr. Vindhya Prasad. Welcome to you, our sister. Welcome to you, Minister. How are you tonight?
Good evening to you, Dr. Mahadio and Mr. Gildari. It's a pleasure to be here with you on your finale, as you say. And to all those who have tuned in, to all those who are listening this evening, it is my pleasure to be here with you on a Friday evening. I know Friday, traditionally, you'd like to relax and you would like to have some time with your family and do the things that people do in Guyana on Friday. But unfortunately, COVID has placed a lot of limitations on us. So you get to listen to what I have planned for Guyana through the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. And of course, it is always an opportunity to be able to relate to you, to interface with you, and to wish you well, because without good wishes, without prayers for unity, prayers for fraternity, and the ability to bring people together on platforms like this, I think our world will not be what it is. So I really thank both of you for having me on tonight's program, as I hope it's not really the pulling of the curtains on this, because people may have gotten accustomed to this and they would want to see it continue. But thank you nevertheless for having me as your final first guest.
Thank you, Minister. And, I guess the first question that everybody has on top of their list for you, Minister, is that we heard you are the bearer of wonderful $25,000 gifts. And so, we wanted to ask you a little bit about that because Leonard has complained to me that he don't know when this government is sharing out anything and whether he'd be ever receiving. But jokes aside, tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, Minister, about, what are the measures, what are the things that you guys are putting in place with immediacy?
Well, I know the government has committed to giving $25,000 per household. It is an initiative that's driven and led by President Ali. And as such, it is not really within the purview of my ministry, But I do know they're working on methods to get this cash grant to families across the country. They will develop the criteria of what constitutes a household and the mechanism by which it can be given. Because as a government and as part of the government, we are very cognizant of the need that people have when it comes to the alleviation of economic hardship. We are very, very conscious too that there is a basic necessity like food. And of course, I have no doubt that people have enormously high expectations of us to get things done and get things done with alacrity. It does put a lot of pressure on us to deliver and to deliver well and to deliver within the short period of time that takes us to the conclusion of 2020 and to utilize what resources we have within the existing fiscal space. The whole talk about fiscal space is an important one because as many would have realized, we came into government and we too wanted the opportunity to do many things. However, because of the practical limitations on what we can or can't do, much of what we're going to be doing across the government is to bring that immediate help to people. Through the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, while it's not the 25,000 that I can talk to you about, there are a number of good programs that will come on stream, including the whole talk and the whole conversation about pension. Now, pension and its delivery has been a personal thing of mine in a sense that it always bothers me when our elderly persons have to stand in line and long lines and to really weather rain and sun and everything that comes with standing in long lines. So one of the first things I started to work on when I got in was the delivery of pensions. So what we're working on is to right away remove 3,400 people from the lines. And those are the people who are considered shut in on our list of 5,630 pensioners. And those people will have direct delivery of pensions to their homes. In addition to that, it is ensuring that there are alternate venues for the collection of pensions. Of course, our demographics, the hinterland versus the coastland, will depend heavily on access. So post offices are the common venues for pension collection. However, what we are coming up with is a number of venues like MoneyGram, Western Union, and all of those other places. The reason why, and people might say, well, lots of lines too, but then we're looking at the distance that people have to go to the post office. It might not be the most accessible place for any one person. So you still have the post office, you have all of these other options. And then the option we hope more people will buy into is the direct deposit to the bank. Most people who already have bank accounts or most people who are within the public system and have bank accounts, we want to encourage them to apply or to let us know that you want your pension delivered to your bank accounts. So for you, there are no lines. For those who want to establish bank accounts, we're going to be working with you to have an easy access to the bank. In other words, getting your bank account started. As you know, we have many new laws that would have been enacted that made things a bit difficult. But through the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, we'll be putting out public service announcements and guidelines on how you can do this quickly. In addition to that, because some people will still have to go to the post office, we are paying earlier than the first of the month. So pension will be started. We were starting to pay pension at least 3 to 4 days before. And on the regular 5 days, it will be an alphabetized system. So you will know A to a particular letter, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So you don't have to go on the first day. I know everybody wants to go on the first day because you want to hold that cash in your hands. But again, it's coming up with a number of alternatives before we roll out phase 2 and to take more people off the post office line. And I don't want to say much about that right now because we cannot do it within this short period, but it's another phase we will be rolling out to reduce the congestion at the post office, if not before the year's out, very early in the new year. So the move towards removing the lines eventually is where my heart is. I also know people want to know if they will have an increase or not. The usual practice is to wait until the budget, but I have asked for an increase. And I know an increase was promised in the manifesto. So we will have a movement towards the ideal or as close to the ideal as possible. Because I am very conscious, I'm very conscious of life and the challenges people have with expenses as being commensurate with the disposable income that they have.
Right.
So it will be something that I'm working towards. So that's pension. There are a number of other things that the ministry will be focused on, and maybe I can just give you in a nutshell some of the areas we'll be looking at. We are also aware that a number of essential workers have had to go to work through the period of COVID. Some had the opportunity or the necessity to stay at home, but there were many others, including healthcare workers and similar professions, both in public and private sector, who had to go to work. And there came the problem of children, because children had to be left at home or left somewhere. So we are looking, as we move the country towards a phased opening or towards gradual opening, we're looking at providing direct payment to childcare centers, licensed childcare centers, for people who apply for this service, if they have children below the age of 7, so that we can take that burden off of them. Because it is a very difficult thing to know where to leave your child and to leave them safely. So we are moving in the direction of even expanding that. But for now, there will be a list of workers who right away we feel fit into the category of essential workers. And what I want to say, it's not limited to public sector. We're moving to the private sector. How can people get this opportunity? Applications will be provided to employers and also be placed on the ministry's website and Facebook page. And you can also call the ministry for help. So that's something that we'll be rolling out after the budget. Yeah. In addition to that, violence against women is huge. So gender-based violence, domestic violence, we're looking in those in multi-pronged approaches where we're partnering with the UN and other similar agencies on an initiative called Spotlight Initiative, where we're looking at various factors that impact on women, girls, men, and boys, and how we can counter violence. But aside from that, we are going to shortly start a program called the Survivors Advocate Program. What that is, when people are victims, I don't like to use that word, that's why we say survivors, but for clarity's sake, when people are victims of violence, sometimes they're overwhelmed by the system and they are not able to get from the point of reporting to access all the services that are out there, even all the way down to the court. So we are developing a support system where a trained person will be a buffer. So if a report is made, that person will be with the individual all the way to the conclusion of the process, including offering counseling and psychosocial support. So this is an initiative that I presented not so long ago at the Commonwealth Interministerial on the platform, the virtual meeting. And it was recognized as a very unique intervention and probably will be one of the things that other countries will follow. In terms of children, we have a number of child advocacy centers. So we plan to expand that and giving the same kind of support that I mentioned with domestic violence, where children can have access to help. So we're making it wider in terms of taking it out to more regions. And we hope the people will utilize these services. Now, all of these services will be absolutely free. And another service I will mention before you think I'm giving you dinner and all of what I'm saying is the one that is called the Family Enhancement Service. This one works with disruptive young people who have patterns of behavior that would cause them to fall foul of the law and to get into trouble. So this is a free program that's open to any young person and their families, where we have the department with trained counselors, welfare officers, and people who are adept at dealing with areas like anger management, violent behavior, work with young people to build stronger, stable families. So those are just some of the initiatives you will see from this ministry. And as you can see, the ministry deals with the vulnerable populations, and it also is extremely people-oriented. So I feel very privileged to be able to continue my service in this way and to be able to offer to the Guyanese people from the depth of my heart every possible thing to make their quality of life better. I wish I could tell you that I was personally delivering the finances to all of you, But for now, I think we want to get as many services and as many bits of help, because we have been doing a number of hampers for women and feminine care products, what we call care packages.
Right. No, continue.
I think we lost it. No, I think we did. It has been, but you did this in the meantime while she's saying that. That is very good news. You know, this is something we've been fighting for. A lot of attention to vulnerable people, and so let us see where that goes. But it's good news that we get some clarity on that entire situation, and at least a lot of help for the women who might be open to violence or being victims of violence. And I like that thing about the survivors too, you know, that's something that we should be talking about a little more often. But over to you, my dear co-host, my dear
Thank you.
host.
Thank you.
I say co-host, but you're my host.
Right. And you know, to Mr. Reginald Shivmangal, ladies and gentlemen, let me say thanks for all the love and all the best wishes and everything. Reggie, you know, you made me laugh tonight, my friend. You know what Reggie has said to us, Leonard? Reggie has said Room 592 is treating me like one of my exes. One partner left, yeah, one partner left the relationship fully satisfied while the other is craving more. Reggie, thank you, buddy, thank you. Minister, we lost you for a minute.
Gentlemen, I'm so sorry about that. We had a short power flicker, but I'm back.
Okay. Well, Minister, thank you. That was indeed refreshing. We don't see you on video, but thank you so very much. I certainly hope that if it's one thing that the PPP government can do, I'm putting it at the feet of the wrong person, of course, but you know, the internet and the connectivity of this country really needs to go up to another level. But Minister, it's been a pleasure to have you here. And we certainly wish you well, and we will certainly stay in touch. And I'm sure that, you know, in future programs and discussions that we will look forward to further interaction and engagement with you.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to share a little bit of what we're doing through the ministry.
I know.
And I hope that people listening to this, they will seize the opportunity to utilize all that we are offering. I just want to reiterate, it's open to everyone. So I trust that they will. And again, I'd like to wish you both well and to wish everyone who is looking at tonight's program a fantastic Friday and a blessed weekend and week ahead. May you always have the strength to surmount and the faith that everything will just get better because you're optimistic and filled with hope.
Thank you for those words, and do have a great evening.
Thank you.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that has been Honorable Minister Dr. Vindhya Prasad sharing with us quite some refreshing information about her area. And as you know, she is taken strong to heart, not just now having the ministry under her portfolio, but she's always been strong at heart with ensuring that people are taken care of and communities being looked after. And, you know, she's always been a person that looks after her community and wants to see us integrate and work together more. So, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know, I want to just remind you all, this is season finale. And maybe later I'll explain why I've chosen the term season finale. But, you know, it is good that we are where we are. And as we go along with the discussion, Leonard, we are going to share the reasons why we decide to bring our program to its closure. But ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long 5 months. And one of the guests who came during these 5 months in our Room 592 was no other than a former political figurehead in Guyana, Mr. Paul Nehru Tennessee. And we have asked him to join us for a couple of minutes tonight again to reminisce probably a little bit, to talk about a little bit of what's going on presently and to have his thoughts, because, you know, Room 592 will be temporarily closing its doors tonight. And of course, we will meet under other circumstances. So Mr. Paul Nehru Tennessee, how are you, sir? Welcome to Room 592, where we have been unleashing the truth. And this is season finale, sir. Welcome to you.
Well, I'm coronavirus free, live and kicking, and I'm energized.
Great. Great, great.
Like,
Well, good to hear,
I
sir.
would like to tell you, it's a privilege to be on your last program. But I hope you don't disappear from the mass media of Guyana, because I do a television program, Carib Nation TV, for a number of years. And I know that both of you guys have a lot of dynamism and a lot of abilities in the media. And it would be a great loss for you not to have these discussions across the board.
Right. I appreciate that, sir. Leonard, what say you?
But I don't know. I mean, I really wanted, you know, there's a couple of things that I discovered in this entire thing, and I would probably tell Paul that I could call him Paul. One of the things that I'm home and I'm wearing a short pants and I'm wearing a blazer. And so what there's one of the things that you could do, and I discovered that when you have a show, all stops must be pulled out. But it is what it is. You know, it's emotional time because of the last couple months. I don't know whether it's adrenaline, whether it's the fact that we were threatened, our democracy was threatened, whether the people wanted the news. I think it could have been a combination of all of that. Well, we were forced to actually hit the table, and you know, our bodies. I'm not sure, but you're a young man, and maybe Mr. Paul is a young man too. But sometimes my body can't take it anymore, man. And then I said, wow, we getting up and we
Well,
going to do what we have to do.
yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you what. And Nanda Prasad, you have hit on something very nice there, and I'm not going to comment on it. But I'll tell you what, we look at the love that's coming out across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, it pains me personally that to take this decision. I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people don't know. The past 5.5 to 6 months has been painful. Not painful in a personal way, but yet painful in a personal way. To see our Constitution being torn up into shreds of paper, to see our country being trampled upon by heartless politicians. I am proud to say that when I approached Glenn Lal and when I approached Leonard Gildari and said, listen, let us fight, let us stand up for democracy. These two gentlemen were all up in arms, all ready to embrace the initiative and say, let's do it. And what a march it has been, ladies and gentlemen. We have been called every name in the book. We have been attacked in every way you could think of, personally, in every way you could think of. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you this, ladies and gentlemen, what we have done in Elections Watch and on Room 592, we have been for the 5 months on a longer campaign than the political parties have been on their election campaign. And we are proud of it. Democracy has won. The fact that the PPPC government has become the government was not the point of fighting. The fighting was for democracy, and democracy has won. Mr. Tennessee, your comments, sir.
Well, with regard to the work that you all have done, I have been following it, and I've followed your audience. You all are extremely popular, and you have a very wide view inside and outside of Guyana. And I think people appreciated the strength, the honor, and the grit that you guys had. And I think you all were fair. You brought and you invited everybody to be on your program. I believe in democracy like you guys. Since I was growing up, I believe in the fundamental freedoms of association, of movement, of speech. And I will die on any foreign beach for that pure ideal. And, wherever I am, in whichever country I am, I stand up for those rights, for those freedoms, because I think those are universal freedoms. And you guys are part of the great quest that our ancestry had since the time of conquest, slavery, indentureship, and 20th century colonialism. So you guys are standing on the shoulders of a lot of people over the centuries in Guyana who have stood up for freedom. Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow, a most recent one, is one of my heroes. And, he was a guy, a lot of people don't know about them, but we have to bring these people to the fore so people could know about them. We had the Berbice Rebellion, you know,
Thank
we had
you.
heroes from the
Yes.
Berbice, the
Thank
Echo
you.
martyrs.
And we had the Room 592 rebellion.
And
you know, Leonard, I'll tell you, Ravi Singh says it nice. Ravi Singh has said that, you know, our tagline has been where the truth, unleash the truth. He has said 5 months, the truth was unleashed. The truth did come out and it helped a lot of people. What refreshes me, Mr. Tennessee and Leonard, is when I hear words like Mr. Yog, Dr. Yog, we have learned a lot from these programs. And that is probably most refreshing. Leonard?
Well, it's always educating people. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we could look back at some of the highlights also, and I guess in a little while we could do that. But it was correct. You know, a moment where when you look at everything that would have been playing out and what we would have been putting forward, our job was not to probably sway opinions. Our job was to present the facts and let people make their judgment or make their conclusions. And I think that was how I looked at it all through it. And I think that's what we did that was so. I think people were looking at it. These were not two people. When you bring on Paul Tennessee or you bring on Sir Ron Sanders or the rest of the folks that came on, so many international representatives.
And Leonard,
it was on that background.
And Leonard, let me just say this, ladies and gentlemen, we will be getting a lot of visitors and guests tonight. We will be joined by a number of persons. We'll be joined by our good friend and brother from the US, Mr. Ozzie Rogers. We're going to be joined by Sian Durjan. We'll be joined by Sanjeev Dattadin. We'll be joined by Selwyn Peters. We'll be joined by Sir Ron Saunders. Everybody's going to come on tonight to say, and here is what, and Mr. Tennessee, I want in your parting words, sir, I would want us to all reflect on one thing. And ladies and gentlemen, here is where that dream and hope is. Democracy will always be under threat if the people of a country are weak. It is the people, it is you all that must stand up. Now, you all have to demand good governance. Mr. Tennessee, there is a new government in place. It is imperative, in my view, sir, that the government not only speak of democracy and good governance, but in every decision and act, it must be one of exemplifying good governance. What's your comment to that, sir?
I agree with you that we don't only want good governance, we want best governance. But there again, you know, local government elections is coming up. We need to empower the local leaders about democracy. We should do democracy literacy, or people need to know the Constitution. You were aware that over these last 5 months, all we heard about is the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. People were not even aware about many things about the Constitution. So there are a lot of things in Guyana that we took for granted, and we thought it was only a matter of going to the polls and putting your vote. But then, lo and behold, you found out that there is something called the Constitution. And therefore, it's very important. I've always said, each nation state in the world, there are about 193. They give you a birth certificate, they give you a passport, and they have a constitution that controls the territory within which you function. And therefore, the media has got to continue in Guyana to operationalize that constitution, because there's a lot of things that is wrong with it. And we have to have fundamental reforms.
Correct. And Mr. Tennessee, ladies and gentlemen, as well, what is important is the role that media must play. And while Guyana's media, independent media, has remained independent, and hats off to Kaitior News and Stabroek News in particular for keeping the flag of Guyana flying high from an independent perspective. we always speak of fourth estate, meaning you have government, you have judiciary, you have executive, and you have the media. But ladies and gentlemen, you hear this from Yog Mahadio tonight. There is a fifth estate. There is a fifth estate. In my view, the media is the fifth one. The media, judiciary, executive, and all of that. And guess who is number one? It is you, ladies and gentlemen. It is the people of this country that must never allow such trespasses on their personal, individualized sovereignty again. We can't allow this. We can never allow the rise of such dictatorship again in this country. Guyana has had it twice. Twice. 1964 to 1992. And I want to say 2018, from the NCM to 2020. Dictatorship that must never be allowed to rise again. Leonard, it has been a phenomenal journey. And Mr. Tennessee, thank you, sir, for joining us tonight. And your closing thoughts, sir.
Well, I would like to see, I know when you think of me, I'm an academic, but also you think of me of having a political past. But I sent you a pamphlet, which is called, this pamphlet. I used to work, it's called Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela, Strategy for Trade and Investment. My closing thought would be this. And I'd like to see the media take it up. Jobs creation in Guyana is very important, but it should not be laid alone at the feet of the government. I would like to see the private sector play a very important role. I would like to see the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Business and Tourism, the private sector, the chambers of commerce get together and have as one of their number one priority, job creation, how many jobs they will create. Because you see, people would be interested in democracy and rights if they could feed themselves, if they can house themselves. And they can only do that if they have jobs, 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 jobs. Now, the private sector in Guyana can play a very important role in this respect. And I was very impressed, Dr. Yog, that I discovered that you are, I thought you were a medical doctor. And when I came to Guyana, I thought I would have consulted you. But now I found out if I want to get rich, I have to consult you, that you are a finance guy.
I didn't know that. That's something I knew too.
In the private sector, making money and creating jobs. You know what I mean?
Yo, I have to consult you. I want to get rich, man.
Well, you know, I can advise you, you know, Leonard, my passion is in looking at how a country spends its wealth. I'm not going to advise you how to get personally rich, but it's looking at how a country spends it.
But you have to
Mr. Tennessee, thank you so much.
I hear you.
Thank you so much, sir. And I want to say this in passing, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Tennessee has mentioned the private sector, has mentioned the entire gamut of how a country is run. But, ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind all at sundry, a private sector that is in bed with a government will not be a private sector. It is part of a public sector. So you got to always be careful about how you're allowing the lines to be defined by whom. And Guyana has a far way to go. I'm not going to comment more on that, Leonard, but it is something that we have to continue looking at. Mr. Tennessee, it's been a pleasure to have you here, sir. And you could stay on, sir. You don't have to leave. Your company is always enjoyable. We will be joined by another guest in a moment. Mr. Sanjeev Dattadin will be joining us. I think, Josh, you have to allow our guests to come in. Ladies and gentlemen, in the meanwhile, Mr. Dattadin is joining us and Sian Durjan is joining us. Let me tell you all this. I want to say thanks to some fantastic people. There is a gentleman. I don't know if he's locked on tonight as yet. There is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Frederick Gaspar. Mr. Frederick Gaspar, you are a phenomenal brother of mine. You know what this gentleman has done? You know what this gentleman has done, Leonard? This gentleman has, from the moment we started Room 592, he created a website that is called room592.com. and he has uploaded every single video of every single program we have had. And
Wow.
Frederick Gaspar, thank you, sir. That was voluntary service. That was great service. And Room 592, and I personally, we thank you very much, Mr. Gaspar. Well done, and I'm proud of you, my brother. If every Guyanese would be like you, we can always move this country ahead. And let me say, welcome first off to Sian Durjan. How are you, sir? I see you wearing red and Sanjeev wearing green.
You're
not gonna get
that's
from
man. Did you guys link up or something before this?
No. I tell you what, it is the fruit of democracy. Finally, you could wear any color you want without being politically tainted, right? Sian, here goes, sir. How are you? And welcome to Room 592 for this season finale. It's been good to have you on the show before, Sian, and unfortunately or fortunately, this might be the last time, at least for this season, unless that man in the room, Mr. Sanjeev Dattadin, and his government does not perform the way we want them to perform, then, unless that happens, this might actually be the final time you're going to see us in this room. Sian, over to you, sir, for your thoughts and comments. How has the room been for you?
Good night, everyone. Good night. Thanks. I've enjoyed the show throughout. Before I was even on the show, I was an ardent follower, an ardent listener. This show is probably the widest cross-section of intellectuals that talk show on TV ever had. And you came into our homes, into our offices, into our vehicles, and you stimulated rational thought. And, iron sharpens iron, and you uplifted the national consciousness. And we have to thank you for that. Kaichur News has a national duty to find a fitting successor to this show so that a new show can carry the baton.
Well, that's a major challenge here, a major challenge here, man. You gotta find somebody. What do you call it?
Well, let's see what will happen. And Sian, I thank you for that. And you are right. And it is something that we have heard that we have managed to get a lot of cross-section of intellect on our program. And Sian, you have also contributed to the national dialogue that we created. And Sanjeev, one of the things that we feel proud of, Sanjeev, and thanks for coming in, and you have also been a contributor to this program. One of the things we are proud of is that viewers and listeners out there have said they have learned, and they have learned a lot from Room 592 and from our elections watch. Sanjeev, welcome to the season finale, sir. Mr. Attorney at Law, Mr. MP.
Good night, Yo. Good night, Leonard. Good night, Sam, and your listeners. And of course, good night to my beautiful wife. Yog, I want to tell you, as I've indicated to you personally before, thank you very much for what you did. Thank you for keeping so many people up to date. I would like to share with your listeners and your viewers what I told you a few nights ago. And that was, besides the fact of my father telling me and me not figuring out that Yogendra that he was speaking about really meant Yog. Besides that fact, my father, who is not in the country, and, during all the times that is going on, he's eager to find out what goes on. He's eager to know during those 5 months when there were some dark days, and then there were some positive days, and then it would go south again, and then we would have to try to go all over that circus that was ongoing. My father was grateful that what was being shared on a nightly basis was the updates. And at that time, you remember you and Leonard were on in the afternoon for a bit, and you'd have your various updates, and then it started out being just the afternoon portion. And then that turned into a couple hours in the afternoon and then a couple hours in the evening. And it was fitting, and I'm sure the decisions that both of you would have realized that because every day the stories were changing so much, there was so much to go on with COVID, there was so much going on with the elections, and almost hourly there would be different updates, different things going on, and there was so much that you needed to share with people exactly what was going on. And persons like that relied on this program to inform them of what was being said, who was doing what, how much the rigging was going on, who was involved in the rigging, what was everyone's response. These are things for the Guyanese who were overseas that it kept them informed. It made them feel a little bit more involved, a little bit more at home. And Yog, thank you very much. And of course, I know everybody's going to be this evening perhaps thanking Yog, but we can't forget Leonard. You know, Mr. Gildari is the constant force going around trying at all times to keep it down the straight and narrow, down the center, and to be the journalist. But I'm very happy for what you did. I'm very grateful for what you did personally. I'm very proud to have participated in a lot of the discussions and a lot of the sharing of insight I could have and help in any way that I could have. Yog, it was indeed a pleasure.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you so very much. And thank you for your kind words as well. It's been an honor and a pleasure, of course, to do what we have done. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been Attorney at Law and a brand new shining in green Member of Parliament, but in green Member of Parliament for the PPPC. You see, one of the benefits of democracy is that colors really don't matter. You are free to wear what color. And yes, it is true, everybody, you have a right of association to whatever political parties you want. Freedom is something we must never give up. Our rights and our freedoms are fundamental, but you must not, our two attorneys in the room would remind us, your freedom must not be at the expense of someone else's freedom. It must be equal freedom for all. Sanjeev, thank you. And any final thoughts? Sanjeev, Sian, also thank you. Any final thoughts? You guys can stay on, but I know you have stuff to do as well as we welcome Orange.
Yog, as much as we have all these, which I wholeheartedly subscribe to, at least in my house, if my wife were to suggest that this is the shirt you wear, you put the shirt on.
Is that a suggestion? This is an order, man.
You
can't say that too loud.
It has something that is intended to be about being a father and papa, which is what my son calls me. So my wife has said that this is it. The color doesn't matter. The politics doesn't matter. You just life is a lot easier if you just put the shirt on and go with it. You know?
Absolutely. So, and Leonard, I see Kumar has reminded us of the famous muting incidents when you invited the APNU AFC guys on board and you chose to mute Dr. Yog Mahathir. But you know what? All is forgiven.
We're gonna talk about that.
On that same day, I had called and asked to join, and the two APNU gentlemen who were saying things that I took great umbrage
Absolutely
to.
Untrue, right? Absolutely
they wouldn't.
Untrue.
You asked them if I could be allowed to join, and they didn't want me to come in to say anything. But
wait. I have to defend that. And not particular day. It was very early in the game. And poor Gildari was there. Had no idea with two guys, big mouths.
No. I have to. Guess what Leonard did?
I muted everybody.
And said, come and deal with Yog. Now there you go.
No, but it was that was a tough day. That was a tough day, though. I was new to radio in that side. So what I did, Sanjeev, I just muted everybody. I wanted to take a breather and said, what the heck is going on here? So I muted Yog, I muted Ganesh Mahipal and the other gentleman that was with him because
it was getting out of hand. And then Yoke says, "But why
Well,
would you do that to
I
me?"
tell you, in all the time that I've known you, that was the first time that Yog really expressed himself, to put it, if we want to put it that way. He really on that day, he was rightly, I thought, offended by a lot of what was being said and spewed, and in fact, I am not one of them that I would say that I would be hearing a program on the radio and I would call in and want to be a part of it. But I felt equally that what was being said was so far from reality that someone needed to answer it right there, right then, because people were going to go away with the idea of what was being said was true. And I understood and I respect the fact that you said that when you invited them, you didn't tell them that I would be on the program. And that to bring me on the program would be unfair to them. But it begs the question at the same time, if you were going to say the things that you were going to say, then you should have been prepared to defend it against the world, let alone little old me. But all
right. But it is what it is. It's all well, all is.
It's all water
yeah,
under
all
the
is,
bridge.
all is.
The good thing about it is that I was able to mute the yoga, so that's a good thing about it.
All right, Yog, all the very best.
Thank
Leonard,
you,
all the very best. I'll take my leave and.
Can I say before council leaves that I've seen him on a million feeds from a million courtrooms over the past 5 months, and I have never seen him dressed down to the. It was always black. It was always sober black and white, and it's refreshing to see him go in a different direction.
Always, that's always it. But Oren, tonight was not intended to be part of a program. I knew that you was thinking of wrapping it up. I promised him I'll come on in 5 minutes just to say thank you to him and to express some of the thoughts that I had about it, and also what I thought he achieved, and I'm very grateful for it. So I really wasn't in the role of doing the formalities today.
Thank you in different garb, though, Council.
Thank you, Sanjeev.
This is just
so gentlemen. Yeah, gentlemen, it's been good to really have you all here again. And Oren, tonight is season finale, and it's good to have you joining us all the way from Trinidad. And you know what, Oren? We delivered before you guys. I am so proud of that, I am so proud. Guyana got its elections and got its declaration of a result, got a government and everything before Trinidad.
I thought it would be a close run thing. I said to my Trini friends, I am making a bet that I want to lose, that we will know the results of the Trinidad and Tobago will have a declaration before we do. And I was happy to be wrong about that. It was an extraordinary state of affairs. I watched the Jamaica election returns last night in real time.
Yes.
And before 10 o'clock, they knew that the People's National Party had taken a drubbing. So we have got a lot of work to do to...
It takes big men and big women to move in a particular direction.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of... Yeah,
yes.
Go on.
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do to make the normal normal. Number one,
correct.
The results of an election with a voters register of 500,000 must be known by 9 or 10 o'clock the night. And number two, the loser must concede on the night. And we really should have been spared all of the shenanigans that we had to endure over the last 5 months. I think we as Guyanese, to some extent, have to take some of the blame for that. We try to normalize or rationalize the abnormal, and we shouldn't. We should have baseline expectations as of our country and its systems. And we should say that that is not acceptable. This level of incompetence to which we're being subjected is simply not acceptable, and we can do better as a nation and as a people.
Absolutely. And I see we have been joined by my good friend and brother from the United States as well, Mr. Ozzy Rogers. How are you, sir? Welcome to Room 592, where we unleash the truth. And as
Yo,
one of our viewers
before
reminded
yo,
us,
just
yes,
before
go on,
I
Santi.
just wanted to say good night to everybody. Thank you for having me. Take good care.
Good night, Santi.
Bye,
Thank
Santi.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Ozzy, over to you, my brother.
With a pleasure.
Please unmute your mic.
Is Leonard Gildari still going around the place muting people? I blame
Muting,
Leonard.
Yes, Ozzy, over to you.
No, that happened a couple of months back, man. You can't do that every day. You got to do it when it's least expected, my friend.
Well, I've been on this program quite a few times, and I was never muted. So maybe that's my share, Leonard, because I did not mute.
Yeah, of course. Go right.
And Ozzy, just before you say a few words, Mr. Roy saying, no, sir, Mingo is not going to be replacing Leonard or me. Over to you, Ozzy.
All right. So thank you very much, Brother Yog Mahadio. Let me start with Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon, I want to say to you that you have been a mentor to me as a broadcaster. I lived in the United Kingdom for a few months. Oh. And the only connection that I used to have to the Caribbean, and I used to pattern myself off of you, just so you know.
What is it getting?
Caribbean, the only Caribbean connection I had when I lived in the United Kingdom was the BBC Caribbean Report with Oren Gordon, and I always remember that. And so I want you to know that you are one of my mentors, and I have absolutely great respect for you.
Thank you very much. That means a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. And Mr. Leonard Gildari, and you have certainly, with the addition of our honorable brother, Yog Mahadio, taken journalism to a higher level with this program, Room 592. And I absolutely want to commend you guys for that, because Room 592 has demonstrated to Guyanese what journalism ought to be, where you unleash the truth. Wherever the truth takes you, you go. You don't sensationalize stories and all those other things that we had passed off in Guyana as normal broadcasting. So you guys have certainly set the bar. I want to get this out there off the bat. Brother Yog Mahadio, you have caused me to perform at a higher level. I want to thank you very much. You have, over the last few months with Room 592, inspired me. And I want to say thank you very much. Because of this program, I was able to advance my my social activism and got more visibility for the work that I was involved in. So to see a program like this go, it's kind of heartrending. And I hope that there will be a reconsideration by yourself, my colleague, Leonard Gildari, and Mr. Glenlal. You cannot allow a program like this to go. I don't know what the situation is. I know, but I don't want to see this go.
Right. But Ozzy, let me say this to you, and let me say it to everybody at this juncture. Look, no, Yog has not been offered any government position. No, there has not been anything.
That's disappointing.
No, there has not been anything from Kaito Radio. In fact, Mr. Glenlal has been kind enough to say to me that, Yog, if you want to take this airtime for the rest of your life, take it. It's free. He has been very kind to do that. But ladies and gentlemen and brothers and sisters, I'll tell you what. I have always been led by my personal conviction for truth and for doing what is right. There have been times in my life when I took decisions that made me very unpopular, but I took those decisions because I believed they were what was right. In this case, a new government is in place and a National Assembly is sworn in. They need their space. They need 100 days at least to perform. I've heard and I've commented about some of the appointments. I've heard and I've commented about some of the persons who are given jobs by the new government. My personal thing now is that these people have to perform or to be allowed to perform, and then we judge them. Don't prejudge somebody who is now into a job. Let us allow them to perform, and then we assess them based on their performance. So whether it is a Leonard Gildari, who is a minister of Kaichol News, or whatever it is, he has to perform, and we assess him on his performance. So I want to say that this was brought to the finale because we thought that the momentum, the vision of delivering democracy was achieved. Democracy has prevailed, and from that presumptive note, from that assessment, we thought, and I have thought, let us now allow democracy to foster, to build, to grow. And I say, and I've said publicly, government of Guyana, don't make me return to this platform, because the truth will always remain the truth. Do what is right and count on my support. Ladies and gentlemen, many of you may not know, pre-2015, Ozzy, you will remember some of this. Leonard, you would know this. Pre-2015, I had spoken out against the then PPP government against corruption. And after that, when the APNU started to be corrupt and so forth, I started to speak out against them. Truth is truth regardless of who's in power. And that is something I would like all of our brothers and sisters across this country to know. And yes, Suzanne DeSantis, maybe we're going to be looking at how we can give coverage for the elections petition. But that is another story to be spoken about. But I just want to take another note to say thanks to a few people before I ask your comments again, gentlemen. I mentioned Frederick Gaspar, who on his own, Leonard, he financed the creation of the website on his own, from his own pocket. That was a contribution that is very magnanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, there is also Sir Ron Saunders. We are still hoping he can join us tonight, but he's told me, just send me a text to say pressing engagement. But, the gentleman has taken Guyana, Sir Ron Saunders, sir. You have represented Guyana, the CARICOM heads at the Commonwealth, at every stage, and we are proud of you, sir. And what makes us especially proud, Sir Ron, as I've been fond in calling you, Sir Ron, you have been a guest on a number of occasions in Room 592. And we have stood together, we have sat together in this room, and we have battled for democracy. And Leonard and I are proud that we were able to sit in the same room with you, Sir Ronald Saunders. Leonard, there was also phenomenal engagement we had with Sir James, former PM of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Yeah, what a wealth of knowledge that gentleman was. I learned so many things about some history of Guyana. And you remember we were extremely shocked with the role, some of the behind the scenes thing that would have happened with Desmond Hoyt and so on. I mean, I was blown away.
Yeah, and Orin and Ozzy, Sian, I think, I don't know, and certainly Mr. Tennessee, you guys would know this. You remember our history when Desmond Hoyt took the credit for bringing back flour and bringing back all those stuff. When Sir James, the former Prime Minister of St. Vincent, was in Room 592, he said to us, it was a CARICOM pressure, elbow-bending pressure upon the Hoyt administration that caused those changes to happen. Because he even quoted, he said, Dame Charles, we're gonna move a motion to get Guyana kicked out. But the CARICOM heads stood and they rallied. Ladies and gentlemen, CARICOM heads stood and rallied behind Guyana on multiple occasions. And, I would like to say to the various ambassadors and high commissions that I have dealt and negotiated and talked with and argued with and challenged, and we end up cussing out each other, not in curse words, but in insults. To those ambassadors and high commissioners that I argued with and presented some harsh facts, my thank you for taking the insults and taking all the harshness. And also, on behalf of Leonard, you have brought on some of our ambassadors, and some of them, and we were in Room 592 with some of them, and it has been fabulous to have the ambassadors here. Gentlemen, the engagement from the diplomatic corps was really good, wasn't it? Oren?
Yes, a fact about Sir Ronald Sanders that your listeners and viewers might not know. Before he became a diplomat, he was an accomplished broadcaster. And he was my first broadcast trainer back
in Guyana.
Yeah, when I worked at GBC in the late 80s. So I owe him a lot. We would interact with each other quite a bit for BBC Caribbean Report and other BBC programs. And he is one of the sharpest minds out there, the son-in-law of Sir Sridhar Thramphal, another very sharp Guyanese mind out there. You mentioned Sir James Mitchell, and I remember at the height of the CCJ business, some people who didn't like the decisions that were being rendered by the CCJ floated the idea of us returning to the Privy Council. But if you look around the Caribbean, Caribbean literature, Caribbean history, Caribbean politics, we have some of the smartest and most intellectually capable people in the world. And we don't need to go anywhere else to have our needs met by anyone else, whether it's judicially speaking or in any other respect. We have everything that right in this region, and I would like to speak up for CARICOM in this respect.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, we are expecting to be joined by Mr. Attorney at Law Selwyn Peters in a couple of moments, and we of course would want to talk about the Commission of Inquiry that is soon coming up. As you know, a lot of persons are behind bars. Excuse me, Mingo and so forth has been detained for their for the investigation into the roles in their attempt to rig these elections. And we cannot disguise the words there. They attempted to rig these elections, and I fully support a thorough investigation into everything they did. And I stand firm in saying that even the police force must be investigated for the roles that were played in those 5 months during that bomb scare, during putting all the people from that Ashman building and all of that. Leonard, you and I have been consistently pounding the table for a proper commission of inquiry into the entire GCOM fiasco from March 2nd, 2020 to August 2nd, 2020.
Yes, and that is something, if you look back at some of the videos at Ashman's building there, and you would have seen those very graphic scenes of the police standing there as if we were in a police state, and the people being shepherded out. I use that word very strongly because that is not a place that you would want to be or you want to see. In our history books, when the history books were written, this is going to be a very dark period, the last 5 months. And the Ashman's building scenes that you would have been seeing there, that is something that has been left with me, and it is going to be with me for a very long time. That there's a place that Guyana should never ever be. And so I want to see settlement with this. There has to be an inquiry, and we have to have answers. Who played what role in this entire thing?
Correct. And ladies and gentlemen, let me also say thanks to Mr. Glenn Lal. He has provided his program time, all of the program time for Kaito Radio over these past 5-6 months for both Elections Watch and Room 592 has been an absolute free contribution to defending democracy in Guyana. And I must tell you, I say this with a lot of humility, not pride. All that I have done here, ladies and gentlemen, every second of every minute of every hour that I spent on radio has been also my voluntary contribution to defending democracy in Guyana. This has not been about earning $1 for Leonard or I or Glenn Lal. It has been about us doing what we have to do. And Josh, please let Mr. Selwyn Peters in. I would also want to say thanks to Jerry Gavaya, who joined us on a few times, quite a few times in Room 592. And of course, you know, Josh, Kevin Raj, we mentioned some of these names, Anil Nandla, says Gunraj, and a lot of the other folks. And I must mention, ladies and gentlemen, if you recall, we had former State Department employees, Ms. Deborah Mizir and Mr. Douglas Muir from the US that joined us in Room 592 to talk about this whole threats that was coming, you know, all the things that the sanctions that were being imposed upon Guyana. So we would like to express thanks to the State Department of the US. And on that note, let me also say, you know, if you guys ever see this, guys and ladies ever look at this broadcast from the US, and you know who I'm talking about, some of you diplomats and, you know, persons whose name I'm not at liberty to call, thank you for taking the curses, well, not literal curses, taking the insults. Thank you for allowing me personally to bend some of those elbows and for reacting the way you did. It has all been well done. Leonard, you'll remember one famous day I posted on social media the words, "There will be a phone call." And everybody started to question, what phone call, what phone call? I think you all know what phone call now that I was talking about, right? But it's in the past. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thanks to them. And I want to say thanks to an 87-year-old avid fan of Room 592, Mr. Clement Inshanali. Sir, I know you have your radio next to your ear, in your hammock at Kanji, Berbice. Mr. Clement Inshanali, all of this has been for you and others like you who are the parents that we, the children, are proud of. Mr. Clement Inshanali, 87 years old. Thank you, sir. You have continued to inspire me as well, and you have continued to insist, let us keep on forging ahead. And I wish to acknowledge that we are joined by no other than our brother attorney at law, Mr. Selwyn Peters, all the way from Canada, joining us in Room 592. Selwyn, welcome. Welcome, sir, to this season finale, Room 592. You're muted.
Good evening, all of you. I joined late because I was enjoying the discussion, and so I wanted a convenient time to jump in. I dressed down tonight because I saw two of my bar colleagues are dressed down, so I figured I better take the shirt off and just put something casual on, you know. But I didn't choose red or green this time around. I figure Cyan and Sanjeev represented those colors very well tonight, you know. But
it was very unplanned.
But let me tell you, this program was really much needed program at the time it existed. We heard a lot of stories, individual stories about the persons who appeared on this program. We learned so much about them and their personalities. We heard about a number of places in Guyana, some of which we've never been. You spoke about a lot of events. There was resort to history as well. So, I mean, the program covered a lot of in-depth terrain. It wasn't simply reporting. It was delving deep into these different matters, not only the election, but other things, including dealing with politicians past and present and future. I know you asked me about what my future role is in terms of politics, and I've never really thought about getting into the political arena, you know, so it was a great program, and I joined with my friends and colleagues in this program that expressed the desire that there'll be some way that a program of this nature can continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Selwyn. And ladies and gentlemen, as Selwyn has said that, let me also mention a couple other names I want to say thanks to. Freddie Kisuna, of course. He has joined us on a number of occasions, and Freddie's opinions are always unique. And so thank you, Freddie. And thank you, Vincent Alexander. We have duelled many a times, verbally, of course, sir. But thank you, Commissioner Vincent Alexander. Thank you, Commissioner Bibi Shadiq. Thank you, former President David Granger, for your kind words and all that you would have done, sir. You know, we totally disagreed with the stance you took, but respect you. We are proud of the decision you ultimately made. And I also think, you know, gentlemen, I don't know if you would agree with me. I also think that, you know, in passing, the sad note of Owen Arthur cannot go unmentioned. The roles he played, you know, the sad fact that he has not survived to see this day in Guyana. But of course, he was a champion, and we had him on our Elections Watch talking to us live. Let me also say thanks to Kemra Dramjatan. And, you know, we have had a number of persons and a number of interactions, and they were not all pleasant. Ladies and gentlemen, behind the scene, Room 592 was not this calm. We had a lot of discussions and a lot of disagreements with a lot of persons from all sides of the divide. Don't feel that there are angels on all sides and there are devils on all sides. It's always been. Leonard, you would recall that when you and I discussed that democracy was being trampled upon and the Constitution was being torn up, and when you and I had to sit alone, and we would have called Selwyn and we would have called Ozzy and called Anil and all of these guys, including Sian, that the Constitution was being literally shredded in front of the very eyes of the people, and shredded by those who swore to uphold the Constitution. I think, ladies and gentlemen, for me, that was a fact that we had to, that was a calling that we had to then stand up and speak out. Leonard?
Yes, it was. And I think that was the whole idea. And let me just say it. Being in room 592, for me personally, it was being out in the water and don't know how to swim. Oren might have been a little more comfortable because of the broadcasting background. I come from the print media, and so being there, and when you're in the presence of Ron Sanders, Sir James, and the rest of the folks, and of course your Sept yoga, and I'm wondering what the heck am I doing here? But it was a big learning experience for me, and knowing that that I was in such an august group. That I was able to learn, and that we were able to talk about this thing. But I think what really pushed me was the fact that when you talk about the Constitution there, and you would be looking at what is happening, and you say, no, I cannot be sitting on my hands and knowing that I could have done something. And I think that with yourself being there, and with so many other people that was talking, that was given their take on that entire matter, I think that would have helped me somewhat. But it was this entire thing, looking at the Constitution and what would have been happening there. I think that's what compelled me, this thing must go on. I think that will give us a strength. It was very hard on us, but I think that compelled me more.
But Leonard, you were a natural.
Let's go around. Yes, go ahead.
I was a what?
Leonard was a natural throughout the whole thing. What is he talking about?
I'm not sure what natural. This thing, I guess, the turning point. But to come back, the turning point was probably when I saw some of the nonsense. I was grappling between being a newspaper man, being a representative of Kaicho Radio, and then being out there and being a citizen of Guyana. And I said, after a while, I just said, to heck with it, and let whatever comes to do, as one of my good friends said, whatever comes to do. And I said, we are going to stand up for this country. And with you being in the background there, being the big bully that he is, and with me being a little bully, I think it all kind of worked out pretty well.
Indeed. And let me just, before I welcome Mr. Tennessee for his comments again, ladies and gentlemen, let me also express thanks to Anthony Astefan, Senior Counsel from way across the OECS. He has joined us on a number of occasions. Senior, Mr. Astefan, thank you so much for your thoughts and for joining us in room 592. Mr. Peter Wickham, we cannot forget the astute political scientist from the Caribbean that joined us on multiple occasions as well. Peter, it's been a pleasure to have you, as it was to have Mr. Chris Ram. And of course, he's now the president of Guyana. You recall that both the president of Guyana and the prime minister, current president, current prime minister, they were guests in room 592. And, I would always remember Mr. Prime Minister Mark Phillips said that, I've survived room 592, so I can survive anything else. And Dr.
Yeah, that was a very famous thing. Yeah. He said, I survived it.
Correct. Dr. Irfan Ali, too, was very gracious. And I know we braced him a lot and we asked him some very hard questions. Let me answer Raul Maycock's question. Raul, you have asked that the room 592 name is a catcher. Who came up with that name? I never disclosed it before. I have been most blessed to have a lady who has walked equally with me at every step I've taken in my life. Her name is Anita. My wife, Anita, is a marketer. She's an accountant, and she is the managing director for one of the local companies in Guyana. And she actually came up with the name Room 592. And the 592, for those of you who haven't realized it as yet, it's the Guyana's international code. So it is Room Guyana, basically, Room 592. And so, Anita, let me just say a personal public thank you for giving me and Leonard and the world a Room 592 that we really enjoyed. Mr. Tennessee, your comment, sir.
Well, one other aspect that you've achieved in this program that is extraordinary is that we always talk, and I presented a paper of the role of the Guyana diaspora at a conference for the University of Guyana, is that the smoothness with which Guyanese abroad, Guyanese at home, Guyanese in the Caribbean were able to participate and engage without recognizing or looking at the difference of geography and of those abroad and those at home. It became one family's debate. So in a sense, I'd like to thank you for having made our family, the Guyanese family, and the friends of Guyanese family, because I consider our Caribbean brothers and sisters as part of the Guyanese family. We are an integral part of the Caribbean. We are part of the Caribbean. If you ask people where Guyana is, they will tell you the Caribbean. I once was in India, and they said, "Where is Guyana?" I said, "The West Indies cricket team." They said, "Oh, the Caribbean." Okay. So I was very happy that you all were able to achieve that, you know, bridging that gap. And I hope that spirit could continue, because the interest was extraordinary in the 5 months.
Thank you.
Bridging the gap.
Correct. And let me also just quickly mention some names, you know, Rhonda and Lamb, she came a number of occasions in our room. And as a matter of fact, Shaz and all the Delon and all of the ladies and gentlemen from the new parties, they had been part and parcel of the Room 592 at one time or another. We remember a number of discussions with Tim Jonas, Ralph Ramkuran, senior Ralph Ramkuran, and Kamal Ramkuran, Bishop Ed Jill, and of course Colin Kroll and Nigel Darmlal, and when they became ministers, of course. And I see we are joined by Sir Ron Saunders, and we are fortunate to be joined again, ladies and gentlemen, by no other than this distinguished personality who holds Guyana true to his heart. Ladies and gentlemen, just before I ask Sir Ron Saunders to say a few words, let me just say this. Leonard, I have been taking a perpetual beating that Anita has been baking all of these wonderful pastries, and I tell you, she has cooked up a batch of cheese rolls and pine tarts, and it's all homemade. And Leonard, once again, there is no taxi service near our home, so unfortunately, I can't send you.
Well, I was about to ask you what is the relevance of this to this.
To everybody in the room, it is COVID time. So just imagine you have received one of these warm pastries and a hot cup of coffee virtually, and enjoy it, gentlemen.
But I would have to interrupt you and ask the judge there to probably overrule whatever it is that you're going to have to say.
Sir Ron, we are really, really thankful that you were able to join us. I know you had some other pressing engagements tonight, sir.
Yes, well, originally the invitation was for 7:30, which I had made arrangements for. And then something else came up, and I literally just walked out of that meeting, and I thought I would check to see whether you were still on the air. I'm relieved to see you're still there, and that I can at least join you for a few minutes.
Thank you. So, Sir Ronald, we have expressed thanks to a lot of persons, including we mentioned the contribution of Sir Owen Arta. We mentioned Sir James Mitchell, who was part of Room 592. We did, of course, mention the contributions you have made, not just to Room 592, but, you know, that phenomenal presentations you did, sir, at the time when it mattered most. I think it really rocked a lot of hearts across the Caribbean when you use those very famous words, democracy is being trampled in Guyana.
What I said
democracy delayed is democracy denied.
Yes.
Sorry, sir. Over to you.
That's exactly what I did say. And at the time, of course, it was important to say it because it was one court case after the other, as you will recall, retrying the same circumstances over and over again. It was a delaying tactic that had Guyana and the Guyanese people on edge. And frankly, anything could have happened in that very uncertain period. But it was not just Guyana. The entire Caribbean was on edge, looking at what was going on. And then there was the international community, who played such an important role in ensuring that democracy was not denied, and that in the end, democracy remained alive in Guyana. So all of that was extremely important. And I am glad I made the interventions at the time that I did it. They were done in the interest of Guyana. They were done in the interest of the Guyanese people, but they were also done in the interest of the Caribbean community. Because had we ended up in Guyana with what would have been a coup, a government installing itself without being elected, that would not have gone down well for the Caribbean in the international community. And I see we've got Paul Tennessee with us, and Paul would know that in the Organization of American States, for instance, where we continuously talk about the importance of democracy, the rule of law, and free and fair elections, we in the Caribbean have tended to judge others in Latin America. This would have been Latin America's opportunity to judge us. And that was the last thing I wanted to see happen. Guyana should not have become a banana republic. Banana republics is not what we in CARICOM want to be associated with. We've resisted it from the time we were formed, and that is what we must continue to do. That is why it was so important for the rest of the region that democracy should reign in Guyana and reign strongly.
Thank you, Sir Ronald. And, I just want to, gentlemen, if we could just spend a couple of minutes, now that a new government is in place, National Assembly has sworn in, and actually it was the swearing in of the National Assembly that then, preempted our decision that, now that the government is in place, National Assembly in place, democracy is in place, it is time that we bring a finale to this Room 592. I would like to invite your comments as we go around, starting first with Sian. I would like to invite your comments now about good governance and what is expected of this government of Guyana going ahead. And, we got to be cognizant of a couple of challenges that the government has, COVID, but every government around the world has it, right? We got to be concerned about the finances, but what's new? So government can complain and will complain about all the challenges it has, but it doesn't take away, in my own view, what they have to do, and that is to serve the people. Sian, your thoughts first.
Well, I think what we want the most from this government is meritocracy. We want people who are deserving of positions to be placed in those positions. We want an end to the nepotism. We want that other people mustn't get ahead of those who are fitting in the role just because of a family connection or a long-standing association. We want a meritocracy. We want fairness, impartiality. I think if we are to do that, then we would just uplift the standards overnight. That, along with a lot of very small things this government can do that would make it credible, long-lasting changes. And certainly we cannot condone wrongdoing, especially that we just exited from. If the rule of law is to be meaningful, we have to hold people accountable for wrongdoing across the board.
Thank you. Ozzy, I want to come to you next on the same thought, your thoughts on governance going forward and how we as a people must look out and demand good governance.
Well, sir, I want to beg you if I can just say something before I go forward, something about this show, because I really think I need to get this out there. And since we're closing off tonight, there's not another opportunity. So sure. Leonard did say, so please forgive me, gentlemen, from deviating from the question, but Leonard did say, he was there and he was like, what am I doing there? And then he was like, yeah, I should do something. It was a phone call on this very program, Room 592, that I heard, I would refer to her as an auntie from in Berbice, called and start to cry on this program and cry for Guyana. And that broke my heart. And I would admit now that I shed a tear. And that propelled me to go out and do something on the behalf of my country and to fight for democracy. So this program, Room 592, has certainly put the put the spring in my feet, push me towards the activism to fight for democracy. So, like I said before, I hate to see this program go, and I really would love to for you guys to find a way to come back soon.
Well, thank you, Ozzy. You want to comment on the question?
Yes. I am optimistic about our country. We have already seen we have a government in place that is action driven. We've already seen His Excellency has been all over out there, meeting the people, regardless of whose stronghold it is. He has already said to the Guyanese people that he's going to go in there to govern on the behalf of all Guyana. And I've seen it already. And knowing His Excellency, I am confident that this will continue throughout his tenure, and we will see Guyana move from strength to strength. I want to say to our Guyanese friends, this is your time. This is your time. Guyana, your time has arrived, and I want to urge every single Guyanese to participate in the nation building efforts, and let us just move this country forward. We all love Guyana.
Thank you, Ozzy. Mr. Tennessee, I want to come to you next. And just before I hand over for your comments, let me just also very quickly, Leonard, we need to acknowledge some of these names, of course. And I quickly want to mention, of course, Ms. Marcia Nadir Sharma. I want to mention Dr. Amarnath Dukhi, who has been on our program. And of course, Annette Arjun, who has come in a number of times in room 592, doing phenomenal work on the environmental side of Guyana. Mr. Stefan Munsami from the University of Guyana. Mr. Tennessee, over to you for a comment on the question of governance and the expectations of continued governance for the people of Guyana, sir.
Well, first of all, I'd like to take the opportunity that Sir Ronald is on the program, because I work closely here at the university over the years with the Organization of American States. And no doubt, this was one of the proud moments of the OAS. And Sir Ronald and the other Caribbean diplomats, I was in touch with a lot of them, including the Deputy Secretary General, and they played an important role to keep Guyana's democracy alive and kicking. So I'm very happy that the OAS, because I do a lot of programs with my students on the OAS. The last time they represented Barbados and Bahamas, and we try to promote the Charter for Democracy of the OAS. Having said that, I think the two words that is always used about governance is accountability and transparency. A government elected in a verifiable, free and fair election, and recall without violence. But also Guyana, we have a unique situation, and the 5 months have taught us this, that the hidden agenda that was not on the table was a question of race. And we need that we shouldn't just aspire for good governance, but the best governance. And the best governance will involve inclusivity across the board, inclusivity, and also national healing. The government of the day, but it's not only the government of the day, civil society, the private sector, and other sectors in the society have got to be engaged, especially local governance, local government. At the level of the community, we have to engage in national healing. We have to try, I give examples. I lived in South Annandale in the middle of the Afro community and the Indo community. They have to spend more time with each other and to use those opportunities to dialogue. So that would be my reflection about the best governance in Guyana.
Thank you, sir. And I want to come to Orin next. Orin, in terms of your going across the Caribbean and looking at what Caribbean people, and it might slightly be something that I'd be asking Sir Ron at the same time. How do you, Orin, expect the Guyana government or want the Guyana government to have democracy and good governance especially prevail, given the past corrupt deals and corruption that was being accused and concerns that exist for that, and given what's facing them presently with all the challenges being posed by various persons, especially the opposition, sir?
Before I answer your question, permit me to give a shout out to my broadcasting mentor and my big brother, Sir Ronald Sanders. The first formal broadcast training that I received a few years after joining GBC was from him. Under the auspices of UNESCO, I went to BBC in London. I kept badgering him. I even interrupted a Christmas dinner between him and his wife, Suzanne, in Toronto at one time. And here he is, again, unable to shake me. All these years later, I noticed.
I now know what to do to find that job. Now I know what to do. Go on.
I noticed an Antigua and Barbuda flag in the background, and I would say to the good gentleman that this is room 592, not room 268. So, having said all of that, you know, a few months ago, I stepped out of my crease and I said that the Guyanese people voted for change and the government should go. Now, reporters are not normally expected to take positions and to take strong positions. And I took a fearful beating from some of my friends on the APNU AFC side for that. But as I've always said, when you stand on principle, the view is very clear what needed to be done. So what about the current government? I think it's very, very important that whatever succeeds Room 592, that we continue to see our roles as holding the feet of the people in power to the fire. Don't be afraid of being unpopular. Don't be afraid of falling out with people. It will happen. I don't like to name names, but as a young reporter, when Asghar Ali was in opposition, I gave him airtime. When he was in the government, I continued to ask the questions in the same way. And we went from being friends to not being friends because he went from a position of opposition to a position of accountability. And I want to answer your question, Yog, by saying that we in the media, we in the journalism profession must continue to ask difficult and awkward and hard questions and to hold people's feet to the fire. I flagged about a year ago the fact that the charges hanging over His Excellency the President would be problematic, and it would be interesting to see how they dealt with that in the rule of law. Eventually it was ruled that a sitting president could not face charges. And I think that that was a disappointing early outcome, and things like these, he should have faced the court over those charges is my view. And things like these, we must continue to hold to the fire the feet of people in government. But this has been
great.
This has been an outstanding. This has been an outstanding initiative, and I'm glad to have been a part of it. The fact that you kept inviting me back showed that I didn't put my feet in my mouth at any time. And I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for being a part of the film.
Thank you. And as we come to Mr. Selwyn Peters, attorney at law, I would like to also...
Let me respectfully take my leave with your permission and everyone's permission.
Sure.
Thank you, Yog. It's been such a blessing. And Godspeed to you. And I wouldn't say Godspeed to Leonard because he's become a fixture. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Sian. You have a good night. So I want to come to Mr. Selwyn Peters as well. And Selwyn, I would want to ask your thoughts, if you can, sir. And I'm keeping Sir Ronald Sanders, of course, the best for the last, and not meaning the rest of you guys are not the best, right? You're all best, but you know what I mean. So, Selwyn, we got to talk about a few things, and I wish there was time to really go into details. Look, you have things like a number of persons are now being investigated by the police for the election fraud, or for the allegations into the election fraud, for the attempt to rig the elections. There are going to be special prosecution. There's going to probably, ladies and gentlemen, there'll be special prosecutors. I'm not at liberty to tell you who those special prosecutors are going to be. I'm not at liberty to tell you at this stage what will be the shape and form of the commission of inquiry and all of that. But I do have here a gentleman who sits on the side of human rights and law, and that is Mr. Selwyn Peters. Selwyn, how do you see governance? How do you see the shape of the next couple of weeks coming up? And especially your thoughts, sir, on the legal aspects of the, those persons being investigated presently.
Well, certainly.
If you can.
Yeah, certainly, this is what I will say. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. And it may well be the case that I may be one of those special prosecutors. And we'll see. I mean, if the terms and conditions are right, I would participate in the prosecution. I was asked, and I sent the message clear that the way I would participate is if this is not a show trial, if this is a matter in which the state is serious, or the director of public prosecution is serious about prosecuting these cases, have very serious lawyers in the case, and the case proceeds through the court system with alacrity and with fairness and with due process. So in the event that you see me pop up as a special prosecutor, those are what my ideals would be, that the accused be treated very fairly, and that, we present the evidence to the court, and the court makes its decision as to whether or not these people are culpable and whether or not the test has been met on whatever charges they've been has been laid against them under the laws of Guyana.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Selwyn. And we certainly wish you from Room 592 all the successes in the future as well. You and I will continue to talk, of course. We have lots of work to do. Sir Ronald Saunders, sir, I would want to ask you for your thoughts as well on governance and what is expected from your experience, sir. All across the Caribbean, you have been talking and walking the talk about good governance, sir. Your thoughts for the immediate future of this current government of Guyana?
Well, let me begin by, first of all, acknowledging Oren Gordon. I didn't realize Oren was on, but Oren was kind enough to talk about the role that I played in his training. I have trained many people in different fields of my life. Oren Gordon is one of the outstanding ones in the area of journalism and broadcasting. I need go no further than that. His work speaks for itself. But when I see him, I feel pride in myself, because I think this is a man that I helped to produce. But I could not produce him unless he had the talent to rise to the occasion, and he always had that. So for me, he is somebody whom I feel pride in for that reason. Now, having said that, and I suppose indulging a little mutual admiration society with Oren, let me move on to the question at issue here. Look, Paul raised a point, which is not one that we should let go unless we pay some attention to it. And that is the underlying factor of racism that we saw in this last general election and in the 5 months that followed it. Some of the most violent, disgusting things were said, particularly on social media. And I regret to say that up to today, I still saw remarks of those kinds being made. This is a critical issue in Guyana. Guyana is one society. It is one people. You know, somebody mentioned in a book the other day, and it's a point I'd like to make now. Oren Gordon and I are both Guyanese. Our roots may have come ancestrally many hundreds of years ago from someplace else. But we are more like each other than we are with the people from the continents from which we came. Now, my ancestral beginnings are in Portugal and in India. But I can tell you, having visited both places, I am comfortable with my Guyanese compatriots, whatever race or color they are. because that is the civilization and culture to which I belong. I don't feel at home in India. I didn't feel at home in Portugal. I feel at home in the Caribbean, and I specifically feel at home in Guyana with Guyanese people. It does not matter what race, color, or creed they are. And this is something I think that any government, and particularly this one, that has come into office at the end of this extremely bitter period for Guyana, has to pay attention to. Paul talked about inclusivity. There has to be inclusivity. And the government has to be seen to be bending over backwards to ensure that happens. Because unless we have one society, one Guyana, one people, it is going to be difficult for us to deal with our external problems. And we have many external problems. We've still got Venezuela. That's not disappeared. We have also problems that cross into our borders that we don't even see coming, like COVID, which Guyana now has to deal with and deal with quickly before it decimates the population more than it has already. So the point is that race question has to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with openly and transparently. And we have to see the kind of inclusivity of the races in Guyana to make people feel that they have equity in the country. Very important consideration. And that has to be part of the governance of the country. Having said that, I have to express my profound concern about the attitude taken up by Mr. Harman as the leader of the opposition in Parliament on behalf of APNU AFC that he leads, because he's come into the position of opposition leader not accepting the fact that there is a legitimate government in office, not accepting that he was defeated in the election, and preaching a kind of narrative of inciting racism and violence, which is not good. It is not good for anybody in Guyana. It is a wrong path for Mr. Harman to be taking. As the leader of the opposition, he needs to oppose the government, but he needs to oppose them on the issues that matter. Not to continue to feed this issue, this feeling of race and hostility, but to tackle the government on the things they failed to do. That's what the role of the opposition is. It is remember, the role of the opposition is that it is a government in waiting. And if you want to be a government in waiting, behave as if you are a government when you are in opposition. Give the leadership that the place needs. Question the issues that need questioning. And it brings me then to the question of democracy. You're closing up Room 592, Yog, because you believe that you've accomplished your task. Democracy is alive and well in Guyana. Let me tell you this. Democracy is never alive and well everywhere. If anybody believes that democracy is alive and well in the United States today, go talk to the Democratic Party. Go talk to Black people who are being disenfranchised throughout states in the United States. Go talk to the families of Black people who have been shot in the street by policemen. And let's look at the justice system and see just how just that system is. Democracy is a very fragile plant. It has to continuously be nurtured. So you may have closed Room 592, but the role of something like 592 has to continue if, as Oren said, the people who are in charge of governance, if their feet are to be kept to the fire, it needs a vigilant press to keep that activity going. Vigilant press, incidentally, must also look at people like Mr. Harman and what he's saying, because what he's saying is not good for Guyana. He's not taking on the role of a responsible opposition leader. He is behaving as if he's an insurrectionist and an insurgent, and that is quite wrong. Now, my final point on the governance issue is this government does have great difficulties before it, financial ones, as you pointed out, but it will be a government that will have less financial problems than ones that preceded it. Because the reality is, whatever monies we get out of oil and gas, it will be that much more money than we have had before. That money has to be spent carefully. There has to be full accountability for it as part of the governance structure. If not, it will raise doubt in the minds of people. And one of the things that has to happen in good governance is that you have to carry the population with you. People must have confidence in government. And incidentally, government is different from governance. Governance is not just government. Governance is how the private sector behaves in a society, how the trade unions behave in a society, whether there is in fact a compact between all of the elements in society, that they have a common purpose, and that is the goal for which they're working. And they should do so in both a transparent and accountable manner.
Thank you, Sir Ronald. And ladies and gentlemen, we got about 15 minutes to go for our program, 15 final minutes of Room 592. I just want to mention in passing again, let me thank the gentlemen who have joined us tonight for being here. And I want to mention also some names: Hammy Green, former Prime Minister of Guyana; Ruel Johnson; Ramesh Prasad from IPED; of course, our good friend, Mr. Ryan Crawford, attorney at law from Berbice; Nick Boyer; our good friend Charan Das from Canada; economist Taran Kamraj; another economist, Joel Bagwandin; Mr. Alex Arjun from Real Guyana; and Senior Counsel Mendez. He has not been in Room 592, but he's actually been a very good friend and has actually contributed largely to a lot of the discussions that prevailed. Let me also say a special word of thanks to Josh Kanhai, Delan Mopet, Carlis Eiffel. Leonard, I don't know if you know this, Leonard. I think I shared this with you. But also, there were some fellow newscasters and news agencies that really contributed and gave a lot of kudos. And I'd like to compliment some of them. You know, Stabroek News, not necessarily the owners of Stabroek News, but a lot of the persons working there called and expressed support and a lot of information and stuff that was being shared. Of course, Kaiser News. I want to also acknowledge Hits and Jams Rolf Ferguson and Channel 19 in Berbice. Of course, the channel, I can't remember the name of the channel, my apologies, in Kerry, that was carrying our broadcast live over there as well. So it's been phenomenal. And Leonard, none of this would have been possible without the cooperation of your family, my friend.
Absolutely. My wife and my kids, I think they didn't see me for a very long time. And even up to now, they complain, and everybody's in a lockdown. I'm on a lockdown here. So they're in a lockdown in their room while we're allowing this thing to go on. But, you know, you did mention a couple of things there. One of the things that we probably missed from this entire Room 592, that people are actually looking at the programs and writing stories, all the media houses. Yeah. So the Room 592 was not just about the interviews. They were actually news-making kind of thing that was happening there. So that was a very big thing. You could open the newspaper on a daily basis and see Room 592 with Dr. Yog Mahadi and Leonard Gildari. A minister said this, or somebody said this, Ron Sanders said that. So it went on, and that was a big thing too. That was a very big thing that came into
Correct. In fact, I was tickled. Yeah, go on, Oren.
Yeah, Leonard mentioned the fact that his family saw very little of him. Is that a pillow behind you, sir?
It is a chair with a little... no, it's not a pillow. It's not a pillow.
Good question.
But the bottles of water keep coming.
You are so right, and I was tickled when I saw a lot of the media houses took more advantage of the Room 592 content than Kaiser News did. So that was actually very good. Let me also mention on my own behalf a special thanks to my two sons. I have two sons. I don't know if you guys know this. One is 18 and the other is 5. So quite a disparity in age. One, the big one, his name is Yoga, and the little one, his name is Arya. So my two sons have always been, they're actually hiding in front and trying to jump up and make me laugh sometimes in the show. And they've been threatening me to do all of this. What's the thing? These videos that's going around. TikTok. Yes, they've been threatening me. And as soon as I walk down the step, my wife Anita would start dancing and holding the camera and say, I'm going to post you up there and let people see the other side. But thankfully, it all never happened. But thanks to them all, my brother, Dr. Mahadio, and of course, Melissa. But also, ladies and gentlemen, I want to mention quickly, when we started this, Oren, you mentioned it, and Ozzy mentioned it, people were calling in, and there was a dire need out there for people to get physical help. The government, the previous government of Guyana, hands were tied basically. Well, not really. They really spent a lot of money stupidly. But they didn't have money to spend for the people who were needy. We started a charity drive, and through the Mahadio Foundation, we distributed over 30,000 hampers to the needy. And ladies and gentlemen, aside from the 30,000 hampers, we distributed three truckloads of what we call in Guyana provisions, right? And I want to thank all those who contributed massively to these, we never shared a photograph because we don't believe in exploiting the recipient's plight. We never shared photographs publicly. We had to take some photos to share with the donors. So I want to thank you, and not many people in this room would know this, but we had also started another initiative simultaneously with Room 592 and Elections Watch. And that is, of course, the Temple of Light. Every evening at 6:30 to 7:30, we have a multi-religious prayer session going on every single night, praying for the health workers, praying for frontline workers. We have had Muslim, Christian, and Hindu prayers being offered every night. And at 7 o'clock, we light a candle, a vigil, kind of 3 minutes vigil. And that's still ongoing. We haven't stopped. Prayers never stop. So ladies and gentlemen, I also like to thank that during, everybody wondered where I got my daughter from. But in COVID-19 time, I found a daughter, and her name is Ashley. And she also she's big though. She's quite big. And let me just say, Ashley, welcome to the family. But it's been phenomenal. And I want to say thanks to you all. And Leonard, it would not have been possible without you, my co-host.
I'm not sure whether it's a cry or I'm not sure whether it's a cry or whatever it is. Well, let me say you, whatever form that it is gonna. I hear what everybody would have been saying, Sauron and the rest of the folks here, and obviously we'd have to look deep within the radio station. I think Glenn would be looking on, and Tishana, who's been managing the radio station for Glenn, this is his daughter, and everybody has been looking at what this would mean. Obviously, we knew that it would have had to come to an end sometime or the other, but we will be taking counsel from you guys that there is definitely a need for something like this. Are we ever going to probably replace Room 592? I think not. But we are going to have to come up with we'll have to scramble to come up with a format that is going to probably bring some kind of analysis. And I'm glad that you guys have offered in your minds, if I'm reading and looking at your so very happy faces here, that we're going to bring back a yoga and we're going to bring back Sauron and Selwyn and the rest of you guys. Oren, I know he's going to be right up under me. And Mr. Paul in Nehru, Tennessee, of course, we're going to be there. And of course, my good friend there, Rosie Rogers, we are going to be bringing something, and let us see what happens. And yoga is going to be with us all the time. So we're not going anywhere, maybe in another form, in another place, but that's it. And I see Oren want to say something.
Yeah, it just shows the power.
Just before you say Oren, let me also mention, thank you, Oren. Let me also mention people like Wesley Gibbons from Trinidad, who was a fantastic part. And let me also mention the new president. I've had discussions with him, albeit not officially, of Suriname. Quite a gentleman and quite a passionate gentleman for the development of the people of his country and people of his neighboring countries. Oren, back to you.
Yeah, I was just going to thanks for mentioning Wesley. He was the person who introduced me to you.
Yes.
In a manner of speaking. I was just going to say in response to Leonard about the talk about the power of the media today. You can sit down in Australia at whatever time of day or morning or night it is and watch this. And people are responding in real time with comments, suggestions, questions, wherever in the world they are. And you know, this is a beautiful and powerful thing and a really, really good concept. And I hope it continues in some form or fashion. The beauty of it is the is the spread. I could just as easily be in New York watching it and participating in the program as I am in Chaguanas, Central Trinidad.
Yes, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, I wish to just share this all with you all out there. And this is my view. I do not hold any of my guests here tonight as sharing these views. But, you know, we all agitate to have a better world, ladies and gentlemen. I, yours truly, have steered clear of political affiliations and partisanship. Many do not like when I criticize the PPP, and many do not like when I criticize the PNC. What I do not criticize is Guyana. And if our politicians cannot make our motherland the heaven that it deserves to be, then they don't deserve power. I would like to remind everybody out there, the politicians, they're called public servants for a purpose. They're there to serve the public. And we got to keep on reminding them and hold their feet to the fire. Ladies and gentlemen, our foreparents, as Sir Ron, he put it more eloquently than I can ever do. But my thoughts to support what he said. My foreparents were servants and slaves. But I will stand firm to ensure that my children will never be servants and slaves to any political masters. Not as long as I'm alive. And I'm going to teach them that freedom. So ladies and gentlemen, we all got to realize, every single one of you, you have the power to remove a government. The democratic right to your vote. It is sacred, it is profound, it is in your constitution, and it is the right we have. It is up to you all. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand around to our room for 60 seconds each. We are quickly running out of time. We got just about 3 or 4 minutes to go before Leonard closes the door permanently. I want to start with Sir Ron first. Sir Ron, your closing comments, sir, as we wrap it up tonight.
Well, I think what you just said, Jörg, is very important. And that is that people must remember, and the people who have to remember this more than anybody else is the people who now serve in government. They have been elected to serve the people, not for the people to serve them. And the people who must remember that more than anybody else is they themselves. The minute they start seeing themselves as something other than the people's servants, then it is time for the people to let them know who they are. So thank you very much, and congratulations on this program. You guys did a wonderful job. It is a shame that this room is going to be closed. I hope others open as a result.
Thank you, Sir Ronald Saunders. It's been a pleasure. Ozzy, your final comment, 60 seconds, sir.
Well, thank you very much for making me a part of this program. I have learned a lot. I want to acknowledge the heroes of the struggle for of the past 5 months during our dark days. The 240-something thousand people that went out and ensure that they vote for change to rescue Guyana and put it back on that developmental trajectory. And like I said before, I'm an optimist, and I believe that Guyana time has come. I believe that we will see real change in our country. And I'm looking forward also for more Room 592 in whatever format, so that we could continue talking about with the progress report.
Thank you. Thank you, Ozzy. Selwyn Peters, your final comments, sir, 60 seconds.
Yes, I would like to take the opportunity to salute all the local and international observers who were there prior to, during the elections, and in the aftermath of the elections. I would also like to thank the persons who stood vigil over the ballot boxes at the Otachown Convention Center and at GCOM headquarters. I'd like to thank all the persons who sacrificed themselves in many ways, including yourself, Jörg, and Mr. Gildari. I'd like to thank you all for the sacrifices you've made over the past 5 months. It was not easy for any of us who stood for democracy. But I think what came out of all of this is we all took a stance that we are not going to allow Guyana to turn into a dictatorship, and we were going to let the will of the people prevail. We're at that stage now, and this government here has 5 years to show us what it will do.
Thank you, Selwyn. And Orin, your final comment, sir.
Say very briefly, picking up on a point made by Sir Ronald, the point about inclusivity. Ozzy referred, not knocking anything Ozzy says, Ozzy referred to the people who voted for change. I hope and I believe the president recognizes that he's the president of all Guyanese, including the other half of the electorate that didn't vote for him and those who didn't turn out to vote at all. And our wounds are so deep, man. I have felt it, not just the past 5 months, but the past 18 months. Our ethnic divisions, political divisions, all kinds of divisions are so deep and so raw and so profound. They were so deep that some people thought it worth the while and worth the trouble of denying government to a party that they feared and loathed. Mm-hmm. I think that is a very sad situation. The thing to recognize if you're in government is that you're not going to win everybody over. There are some people whose goodwill you will never have. With the best of intentions, you will never have their goodwill. The key is trying to reach those citizens who want to be reached, who want to be reassured, and who want to be won over by you. And it's a very, very big and monumental task in front of the president. What I would have liked to have seen is but the events, the post-electoral events made it impossible. What I would have liked to have seen is the president as a gesture, keep the high-performing people, the high-performing ministers. I mean, our political and list system and various things made it not possible. But I would like to see big gestures like those on the part of the people.
We can certainly take that decision, take that discussion on again. Sir, Mr. Tennessee, sir, 60 seconds. Actually, Orin robbed you of 2, so you have 58 seconds.
Sorry. I'd like, first of all, to say long live the independent media in Guyana. I remember the days we've moved from Gazette journalism to real journalism. We live in a wonderful era. But I'd like to say that both Anand Prasad from the Stabrook News and Mr. Glenn Lal, I consider them friends, as I consider both of you, Ayog and Leonard, friends for democracy, brothers in the struggle to keep hope of democracy alive in Guyana. But I'd like to give a quick shout out to Guyanese as a whole. It's a difficult time with COVID. According to PAHO, almost half of our population is under threat with COVID if we do not take measures, preventative measures. And I hope that we could stay strong, we could stay courageous, we could stay fearless, we don't get discouraged, and that we remain self-confident and fight on for a new, better, and united Guyana.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all, gentlemen. And of course, my co-host, Mr. Leonard Gildari. Sir, last couple of moments of the show.
Yes, thank you very much, dear. And I want to say thank you very much to the good gentlemen, our guests here today. And let me tell you this, nothing is going to change. Nothing has changed. I can remember leading up to the 2011 elections, and I was told by a politician in the room after the election results were declared that go tell Mr. Glenn Lal that he got his wish. I could remember in 2015 that we did do our work, and in 2020, and I don't believe that Mr. Glenn Lal and the team of the Kaichur newspaper, and by extension the radio, is going to change course, which is getting better deals for the people of Guyana and ensuring that democracy works and bringing the news as it is without any kind of flavor or icing on top. And I think that is a promise to the people of Guyana. Having said that, I want to say thank you very much, Dr. Yog. You have taught me a lot. You have taught me to come out of my shell. But of course, one of the biggest things that I would take away from Room 592 and wherever this takes us, wherever this takes me, and the newspaper and the radio, the people that we would have been interacting with, the people of Guyana, wherever they would have been joining us from, I think that was one of the biggest things for me. They would have been there encouraging us, giving us the support, giving us the licks when we deserve it. So that for me was one of the big things too. But whatever it is, at the end of the day, Room 592 did make its mark, and Yog Mahadio, you've done Guyana as good service. I want to say thank you very much for it.
Thank you, Leonard. Ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap Room 592, and I must say it has been a pleasure to be at service. It's been a pleasure to have been in the company of the intellectuals who have been part of Room 592. I want to remind you all, ladies and gentlemen, you can all, each and every one of you across this country, you can all expect better, and you can all stand up and speak out. Freedom is yours. Regardless of who wants to dictate your lives, you can stand up and you can speak out and you can make a difference on your own. You, ladies and gentlemen, are in control of a government. The government is not in control of you. You run the government. The government doesn't run you. Members of parliament, ministers, the president, every single one of the politicians and political appointees are paid for. Their services are paid by you who pay your taxes. Don't let them tell you otherwise. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the paymasters of the politicians. They're in your pockets. You must not be in their pockets. And so I wish to ask every one of you. The Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Let this 2020 be the dawn of a new beginning for Guyana. Ladies and gentlemen, never again must we allow the politicians to run this country in the way it's been run for the past 54, 55 years. The change can be made by us demanding excellence and excellent service from everyone. I will continue to abhor and speak out when I can against wrongs of the politicians. But that will be for another time and another occasion. It has been a distinct pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to be of service to you all. If it's one thing I hope that Leonard and I have shown, it is that we can all stand up and speak out against the worst or against the best. Your right is a fundamental right. Never give it up. Ladies and gentlemen, as I say at the end of each night's closure of Room 592, I will say again for this last time. Say a prayer for our country. It is the best place on earth. Say a prayer for our countrymen. Unity will make us achieve the greatest of great things. May God bless this beautiful country of ours. My brothers and sisters across this country, it's been a distinct pleasure to have been of service in Room 592. May God bless each and every one of you. May God bless this beautiful country of ours. I love you all. Until we meet again. This is it from Room 592. Bye-bye now.